Sarah Chun walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. Her simple black suit looked plain next to the bright colors and strange clothes of the other beings around her. She carried a small bag and wore no special symbols or shiny medals, like the others. To anyone watching, she looked like just another minor official from a small world. The hall was huge. It could hold 10,000 beings from across the galaxy. Crystal walls showed the stars outside, and the air smelled of different worlds, some sweet, some sharp, some strange. Sarah had been coming here for 3 years now, and she still felt amazed by it all. But today felt different. Today, whispers followed her as she walked to Earth's small section. Other beings pointed at her and talked in low voices. The humans were becoming a problem, they said, not because they were strong or dangerous, but because they asked for things they could not have. Sarah sat down in the human section. It was just 5 chairs in the back corner. Most of the other species had big areas with fancy decorations and guards. The Veltar had flowing blue banners. The Kethver had black metal spikes and red lights. The Zephyrians had floating crystals that sang soft music. Earth had 5 simple chairs and a small sign that said, Sol System Humanity in basic galactic script. The council will begin, announced a tall, thin being with 4 arms. Its voice echoed through the hall in perfect Galactic Standard. First matter, the Kethver expansion request. Admiral Zexthal stood up from the Kethver section. He was 8 feet tall with dark gray skin and bright red eyes. His uniform was covered in metal pieces that showed his many battles. Behind him sat 50 other Kethver officers, all looking proud and strong. Honored Council, Zexthal said, his voice deep and commanding. The Kethver Empire requests permission to expand our borders into the Outer Rim sectors. These areas are mostly empty space with only a few primitive worlds. We will bring order and civilization to these forgotten places. Murmurs of approval came from many sections. The Kethver were strong and successful. They had won many wars and controlled hundreds of worlds. Most council members respected their power. Sarah raised her hand slowly. The Outer Rim sectors are not empty, she said in a clear, calm voice. Many of those worlds have people living on them. Some have been there for thousands of years. The hall became quiet. Then, slowly, laughter began to spread. It started with small chuckles from the Kethver section and grew until half the council was laughing. Admiral Zexthal's red eyes fixed on Sarah with amusement. The human speaks of worlds we have never heard of, he said with a smile that showed sharp teeth. Perhaps Earth's primitive sensors see things that our advanced technology cannot detect. More laughter. Sarah did not change her expression. She had heard this before. In 3 years of council meetings, Earth's concerns had been ignored, dismissed, or laughed at dozens of times. We have detailed reports about the populations in those sectors, Sarah continued. We can share this information with the council for review. Information from Earth? Said Councillor Velanaya, a tall blue being from the Veltar delegation. Her voice was kind but doubting. Forgive me, Ambassador Chun, but Earth's technology is ... limited. Your ships barely reach faster than light speed. Your sensors can hardly detect ships at close range. How could you know about worlds so far away? Sarah looked around the hall. She saw the same expression on hundreds of faces from dozens of species. They saw her as someone playing a game she could not win. A child trying to argue with adults about things she did not understand. We observe carefully, Sarah said simply. This brought more laughter. Admiral Zexthal stood up again, spreading his arms wide. The council has heard enough, he declared. The Kethver Empire will expand into the Outer Rim sectors starting next month. We will catalog any populations we find and deal with them according to galactic law. Deal with them? Sarah asked. relocate them if necessary, remove them if they resist. Standard expansion protocol, as approved by this council many times before. Sarah stood up slowly. The laughter in the hall faded as beings saw her serious expression. Earth formally objects to this expansion, she said. We request a delay of at least 6 months for proper population surveys. Objection noted and denied, said the four-armed council speaker. Earth lacks the standing to delay decisions made by major powers. Your species has been part of this council for only 3 years. The Kethver have been trusted members for over 2 centuries. Sarah nodded and sat down. She had expected this. Earth always lost these votes. They had no military power that others could see, no great trade networks, no advanced technology that impressed anyone. Just a small blue world with stubborn people who asked uncomfortable questions. After the meeting, Sarah walked through the station's corridors. The Galactic Council met on Nexus Station, a huge structure that floated between star systems. It was neutral ground where all species could meet safely. The corridors were wide and bright, designed for beings of many different sizes and shapes. Ambassador Chun, called a voice behind her. Sarah turned to see Counselor Velanaya approaching. The tall blue woman moved with flowing grace, her long robes trailing behind her. I wanted to speak with you about today's session, Velanaya said. The Veltar appreciate Earth's concerns about civilian populations. We share similar values about protecting innocent life. But not enough to vote with us, Sarah observed. Velanaya looked uncomfortable. The Kethver are powerful. They have protected trade routes and defended smaller worlds from pirates and raiders. We cannot afford to make them angry over worlds that may not even exist. They exist, Sarah said quietly. You seem very certain for someone whose people have such limited reach into space. Sarah stopped walking and looked directly at the Veltar. Counselor, for just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Something that made Velanaya step back slightly. We are more aware than people think, Sarah said. Before Velanaya could respond, Sarah continued walking toward the human quarters. She passed through security checkpoints that scanned her for weapons and dangerous materials. The scanners found nothing unusual. Just a human woman with normal human technology. In her small quarters, Sarah activated a communication device that looked like a simple tablet. To any scanner, it would register as basic Earth technology, primitive but harmless. She typed a short message. Council approved Keth-4 expansion into Sectors 7 through 12. Civilian evacuation impossible. Population numbers confirmed at 2.3 million across 17 worlds. Recommend Protocol 6 preparations. Request guidance. Unrevealed timeline. She sent the message toward Earth using what appeared to be a standard communication satellite. The message would take days to reach home using normal faster-than-light communication, but the message did not travel through normal space. It moved through pathways that the galaxy had forgotten existed, carried by technology that would have amazed the Council if they had known about it. The message reached Earth in less than an hour. Deep beneath the Sahara Desert in a facility that had been hidden for over 1,000 years. Ancient machines received Sarah's message. Lights began to flicker in corridors that had been dark for decades. Computer systems that had been sleeping started to wake up. On the surface, Earth looked the same as always, blue and green and peaceful, home to 6 billion humans who worked and played and lived their lives. Most of them knew nothing about the Great Deception their leaders had been carrying out for centuries. But in secret places around the world, a few people began to make preparations. They opened locked doors and powered up old machines. They sent quiet messages to hidden bases on the Moon and Mars, and the moons of Jupiter. Earth was tired of being ignored, tired of watching younger species make the same mistakes their ancestors had made long ago. Tired of seeing innocent people die because the galaxy's rulers cared only about power and profit, the HFY thought they knew who they were dealing with. They saw a weak species with primitive technology and big dreams. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In space, Admiral Zextil's fleet began moving toward the outer rim sectors. 300 ships full of soldiers and weapons, ready to claim new worlds for the HFY Empire. They expected no resistance from the scattered populations living there. They had no idea that Earth had been protecting those populations for 50 years, or that every move they made was being watched by sensors they could not detect, or that their primitive enemies were about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. The galaxy was about to discover Earth's true power, and it would change everything. 2 weeks after the council meeting, Admiral Zextil's fleet reached the edge of human space. 300 HFY warships moved in perfect formation through the dark between stars. Each ship was a kilometer long, covered in black armor and bristling with weapons. Red lights glowed along their hulls like angry eyes. On the command ship, Admiral Zextil stood before a massive display showing the local star map. Red dots marked his fleet's position. Blue dots showed their target systems in the outer rim sectors. Between them lay a small yellow dot marking Earth's territory. "Status report," Zextil commanded. "All ships ready for combat jump," reported his tactical officer. "Weapons charged, shields at maximum. Long-range sensors detect minimal activity in target sectors. Any sign of Earth interference?" "Negative, Admiral. Our sensors show only civilian traffic, a few cargo ships, some mining platforms. Nothing that could threaten us." Zextil smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Good. The humans learned their place quickly. But his satisfaction was interrupted by an urgent beeping from the communications station. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a priority message from Nexus Station. It's marked as an emergency council session." Zextil's smile faded. Emergency sessions were rare and usually meant serious trouble. "Put it through." The main display flickered and showed the Galactic Council chamber. But instead of the usual hundreds of delegates, only a few dozen were present. At the center podium stood Ambassador Sarachon, looking as calm and unremarkable as always. "This emergency session has been called to address an immediate threat to galactic peace," announced the council speaker. "Ambassador Chun has requested permission to speak." Zextil growled low in his throat. What game is this? Sarah stepped forward to the speaker's position. Her voice carried clearly across space to every ship in the HFY fleet. "Admiral Zextil," she said, looking directly into the camera as if she could see him. "Your fleet is currently positioned at coordinates 847.2 by 334.6 by 12.8, approximately 2.3 light years from Earth territory. You have 300 ships arranged in standard attack formation." The bridge of Zextil's command ship fell silent. Those coordinates were exactly correct, but they were classified military information. How could Earth possibly know their position so precisely? "Your target systems contain 17 inhabited worlds with a total population of 2.34 million beings," Sarah continued. "These include the farming communities on Kepler 442b, the mining colonies in the Tau Ceti system, and the research stations orbiting Wolf 359. Zextil's tactical officer checked his datapad with shaking hands. "Admiral," he whispered, "those population numbers match our intelligence reports exactly. But those reports are classified at the highest levels." Sarah's voice remained perfectly calm and steady. "Admiral Zextil, on behalf of Earth and the human species, I am giving you one formal warning. Withdraw your forces from the outer rim sectors immediately. You have 72 hours to comply." The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Even the few delegates present seemed stunned by Sarah's words. A human was threatening the mighty Kethfer Empire? It was impossible to believe. Admiral Zexthel began to laugh. It started as a low rumble in his chest and grew into a roaring sound that echoed through his ship's bridge. His officers joined in, and soon the entire command crew was laughing at the ridiculous human threat. "Did you hear that?" Zexthel called. "Out to his fleet. The primitive humans are threatening us. They want the Kethfer Empire to retreat because one small woman asked nicely." Laughter filled the communication channels as his message spread to all 300 ships. Thousands of Kethfer warriors found the idea hilarious. Earth's entire defense force consisted of 12 small ships that looked like they were built in someone's garage. The humans had no colonies outside their home system, no allies willing to fight for them, and no weapons that could scratch Kethva armor. "I have a counteroffer for you, Ambassador Chun," Zexthel said, stepping closer to his own camera. "Earth has 72 hours to surrender completely. All human worlds will become Kethvar property. All humans will become workers in our empire. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what happens to species that threaten their betters." He gestured too. His tactical officer, who activated the fleet's external displays. All 300 ships lit up with weapons fire, shooting at empty space in a spectacular show of force. Energy beams and missile trails painted bright lines across the darkness. The display was visible for light years in every direction. "This is just a small sample of our power," Zexthel announced. "We have weapons that can crack planets and shields that can stop stars. Your pathetic species cannot even imagine the destruction we can bring." Through the communication link, they could see Sarah Chun watching the weapons display on a side monitor. Her expression did not change at all. She might have been watching a weather report. "I see," she said simply. "You have made your choice." Sarah turned to someone off camera and nodded. "Send the message home. Protocol 7 is authorized." She looked back at the camera, directly at Admiral Zexthel. "We tried to warn you. We hoped you would listen to reason. But you have chosen violence instead." "Your threats mean nothing, human," Zexthel snarled. "We will crush your world and salt the ashes." "Admiral," Sarah said quietly, "you have made a terrible mistake. You think you know what humanity is capable of. You think we are weak because we choose not to fight. You are about to learn the difference between cannot and will not." The communication link ended, leaving Zexthel staring at a blank screen. Around him, his officers had stopped laughing. Something in the human woman's voice had been unsettling. Not fear or anger, but something else. Something like sadness. "Admiral," said his sensor officer slowly, "I'm picking up increased activity in the Sol system." Define increased activity. Energy readings are spiking across multiple locations. Earth, Luna, Mars, several outer planet moons. Whatever they're powering up, it's big. Zexthel waved dismissively. "They're probably preparing their evacuation ships. Let them run. We'll hunt them down later." But deep in space, far from any star, ancient monitoring stations were waking up. These stations had been built centuries ago by humans who understood the cost of war. They had been hidden and forgotten, waiting for the day they might be needed again. On Earth, in facilities buried deep beneath mountains and deserts, massive machines began to hum with power. Lights flickered on in corridors that had been dark. For decades, computer systems that had been sleeping started their wake-up sequences. In the Sahara facility, Director James Liu walked through halls lined with dormant technology. His footsteps echoed in the vast underground space. Behind him followed a team of technicians who looked nervous and excited. "Are you sure about this, Director?" asked Dr. Sarakim, his chief technical officer. Once we activate these systems, there's no hiding anymore. The galaxy will know what we really are. Lou stopped at a massive blast door marked with warning symbols in a dozen languages. He placed his hand on a scanner that read his genetic pattern, retinal structure, and brainwave signature all at once. The Kethver made their choice, Lou said as the door began to open. They were warned. They chose conquest over peace. Now, they faced the consequences. Beyond the door lay a chamber filled with technology that would have amazed the Galactic Council. Crystalline matrices that could process information faster than any known computer. Energy cores that drew power from the quantum foam itself. Weapon systems that could reach across solar systems. Begin activation sequence, Lou ordered. All stations, all systems. Wake up everything. Across the galaxy, Sarah Chun sat alone. In her quarters on Nexus Station. She had changed out of her formal clothes and now wore a simple gray jumpsuit. In her hands, she held a small device that looked like an antique pocket watch. The device was counting down 71 hours, 23 minutes, 47 seconds. Sarah had hoped it would never come to this. For 3 years, she had played the role of a minor diplomat from a minor world. She had let other species dismiss and ignore humanity, while Earth worked quietly to protect the innocent and maintain peace. But some beings would only understand one language. The Kethver spoke the language of force and domination. They measured worth by the ability to destroy. They were about to learn that humans had been fluent in that language for a very long time. Sarah opened her personal communicator and sent a message to her family. On Earth, situation has escalated. Recommend staying close to home for the next few days. Love you all. Then she sat back to wait. In 72 hours, the galaxy would see humanity's true face. She just hoped they would be ready for what they learned. On his command ship, Admiral Zexthel prepared his fleet for what he thought would be an easy conquest. He had no idea that he was about to face an enemy that had been holding back for centuries. An enemy that had once ruled the stars and had chosen to step aside rather than continue the cycle of endless war. The Kethvar were about to discover why Earth had been so confident, and why their warning had carried such quiet certainty. The countdown continued. 71 hours, 15 minutes, 3 seconds. The 72-hour deadline passed without any word from Earth. Admiral Zexthel stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the countdown timer reach 0. Around him, his officers waited for orders. The entire Kethver fleet hung in space like a dark cloud, ready to begin their conquest. Time, announced the tactical officer. Zexthel smiled. The humans had their chance. Now they will learn the price of defying the Kethvar Empire. He turned to his communications officer. Send a message to all ships. Begin advance to the Sol system. We will start by destroying Earth's pathetic defense fleet, then move on to their home world. The fleet began to move. 300 warships activated their faster-than-light drives and jumped toward Earth. The journey would take 6 hours at maximum speed. Zexthel expected to be sipping victory wine before the day ended. But as they traveled through hyperspace, something strange began to happen. Ships throughout the fleet reported unusual sensor readings. Their navigation computers showed energy, signatures that shouldn't exist. Space itself seemed to be watching them. Admiral, called the sensor officer, his voice uncertain. I'm detecting multiple contacts along our route. They appear to be monitoring stations of some kind. Kethver stations? Zexthel asked. No, sir. The energy signatures don't match any known technology. They're old, Admiral. Very old. Zexthel frowned, but didn't slow the fleet. Probably just ancient ruins left by some long-dead civilization. The galaxy was full of forgotten technology from species that had risen and fallen over millions of years. 6 hours later, the Kethver fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Earth hung in the distance like a small blue jewel, looking peaceful and defenseless. Between the fleet and Earth waited exactly 12 human ships. Zek still laughed when he saw them. The human vessels were small and simple-looking. They had no impressive spikes or glowing decorations, no massive weapon arrays or thick armor plating. They looked like cargo ships that someone had painted gray and called warships. Is this their entire defense force? Zek still asked. Sensors confirmed 12 vessels, his tactical officer reported, each one approximately 200 meters long. Minimal armor, basic weapon systems. Total crew estimated at less than 500 beings. 500 humans against 50,000 Kethver warriors. Zextel mused. They must be planning to surrender. But as his fleet moved closer, the human ships did something unexpected. Instead of running or broadcasting surrender messages, they began to spread out into a battle formation. Their engines glowed brighter, and weapon systems came online. They're actually going to fight? Asked the tactical officer in disbelief. Let them, Zexthol growled. We'll crush them quickly and move on to the real target. He opened a communication channel to the human ships. This is Admiral Zexthel of the Kethver Empire. You are outnumbered, 25-1. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. The response came from the lead human ship. The voice was calm and professional, with no trace of fear. This is Captain Maria Santos of the EDF Guardian. Admiral, you have entered Sol. System without permission and with hostile intent. Turn around and leave immediately, or we will defend our territory. Zexthel's laughter echoed through his bridge. Your territory? Human, I could destroy your entire fleet with a single ship. Last chance, surrender or be destroyed. Negative, Admiral. We will not surrender. Then you will die. All ships, attack formation. Destroy the human vessels. The Kethver fleet moved forward like a dark wave. 300 massive warships against 12 small human vessels. Every tactical computer in the galaxy would have calculated the same result. Total human defeat in under 10 minutes. But something went wrong almost immediately. The human ships moved, not just forward or backward, but in directions that defied physics. They twisted through space like they were dancing, turning at angles that should have torn them apart. Their speed increased far beyond what their simple engines should have allowed. What are they doing? Zexthol demanded. I don't know, sir. His tactical officer replied, staring at readings that made no sense. They're moving at impossible speeds. My computers say they should have been destroyed by those maneuvers. The first Kethver weapons opened fire. Massive energy beams and quantum torpedoes filled space with deadly light. But the human ships moved between the attacks like they could see the future. Weapons that should have hit them passed harmlessly. Through empty space, then the humans fired back. Thin beams of silver light reached out from the human ships. They looked almost delicate compared to the massive Kethver weapons. But when they touched the enemy vessels, something impossible happened. The beams cut through Kethvar armor like it was made of paper. Shields that could stop nuclear explosions simply vanished. In seconds, the lead Kethvar ship was split in half, its hull peeling apart like an opened flower. Impossible, Zextol shouted. Our shields can stop anything. How are they cutting through our armor? More human weapons fired. Silver beams reached across hundreds of kilometers to slice through ship after ship. Kethver vessels that had won 100 battles were destroyed in moments. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers throughout the enemy formation. All ships concentrate fire on the lead human vessel. Zextu ordered .50 Kethvar ships turned their weapons on Captain Santa's ship. enough firepower to destroy a small moon focused on one target. Energy beams and missiles filled the space around the human vessel. But when the light faded, the ship was still there. Not just intact, but completely undamaged. It hung in space like nothing had happened. "How?" whispered the tactical officer. "That's enough firepower to crack a planet." Captain Santos' voice came over the communication channel, still calm and professional. "Admiral, your weapons are impressive but outdated. Would you like to see what modern technology can do?" One of the human ships, smaller than the others, began to glow with soft blue light. The light grew brighter and brighter until it hurt to look it directly. Then suddenly it released that energy in a single pulse. The pulse spread out in all directions like a gentle wave. It passed through the Kethfer ships without damaging them. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then every Kethfer ship in Intel. The fleet simply stopped working. Engines shut down. Weapons went offline. Life support systems flickered and died. Even basic communication systems failed. In an instant, the mighty Kethver fleet became nothing more than 300 floating metal boxes. "What did you do to us?" Zexthal screamed into his personal communicator, one of the few systems still working. "We turned off your technology," Captain Santos replied. "Don't worry, Admiral. Your life support will restart in a few minutes. We're not murderers. This is impossible. No weapon can simply turn off our systems." "No weapon you know about," Santos corrected. "Admiral, your species is very young. You've been traveling space for only 200 years. Humanity has been among the stars much longer than that." Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like wildfire. Every species with monitoring stations in the area watched in amazement as 12 human ships defeated 300 Kethfer vessels without taking a single hit. Combat footage showed the impossible. Tiny Earthships dancing between massive enemy weapons and striking back with technology that seemed like magic dot in the Galactic Council chambers. Emergency sessions were called. Species that had ignored humanity for years now demanded to know who these beings really were. How had a primitive world developed weapons that could cut through the best armor in the galaxy? How had they built ships that could move faster than physics allowed? Ambassador Sarah Chun sat quietly in Earth's small section, watching the debate rage around her. Delegates shouted questions and theories, but she remained silent. The time for hiding was over, but the time for explanations had not yet come. On his disabled flagship, Admiral Zexthal felt fear for the first time in his military career. His mighty fleet floated helplessly, while human ships moved among them like shepherds checking their flock. They could have destroyed every Kethfor vessel, but instead they just watched and waited. "Captain Santos," Zexthal called over his communicator, his voice no longer proud and commanding. "What do you want?" "What we've always wanted, Admiral. Peace. Your ships will be functional again in 1 hour. When they are, you will return to Kethfer space immediately. You will not enter the outer rim sectors. You will not threaten civilian populations. And if we refuse, then next time we won't be so gentle." As if to demonstrate her point, one of the human ships fired a single silver beam into empty space. The beam traveled for exactly 1 light minute before striking a small asteroid. The rock, which had existed for billions of years, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed or shattered, but completely removed from reality. "That could have been your home world, Admiral," Santos said quietly. "Choose wisely." An hour later, the Kethfer fleet limped away from Earth, with their weapons offline and their pride shattered. Behind them, 12 small human ships resumed their patrol of the Sol system, looking as simple and harmless as ever. But the galaxy now knew the truth. Earth was not a primitive world with basic technology. They were something else entirely. Something that had been hiding among them for decades, watching and waiting and protecting the innocent. The question everyone was asking now was simple. What else had? 3 days after the battle at Earth, the Galactic Council held the largest emergency session in its 500-year history. Every major species sent their highest representatives. Every minor world demanded answers. The Great Hall was packed with beings from across the galaxy, all asking the same question. Who were the humans really? Ambassador Sarah Chun walked to the speaker's podium through absolute silence. 1,000 eyes from 100 different species watched her every move. These were no longer the dismissive glances she had grown used to. Now she saw fear, respect, curiosity, and anger in equal measure. The council speaker, a tall Zephyrian with silver skin, called for order. The emergency session will address recent events in the Sol system. Ambassador Chun has requested permission to provide clarification about her species' capabilities. Sarah stepped up to the podium. She looked exactly the same as always. Middle-aged human woman in a simple black suit. But now her presence filled the enormous hall. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly to every corner without any amplification. "Honored delegates," she began, "for 3 years I have sat in this chamber and listened to your debates. I have watched you make decisions based on incomplete information. Today, I will provide the missing pieces." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy as it appeared in modern star charts. Blue lines marked current trade routes and political boundaries. Red zones showed areas of conflict and expansion. "This is how you see the galaxy today," Sarah said. "A collection of young civilizations struggling for resources and territory. Species that have been traveling space for a few hundred years at most, all believing they are the first to master faster-than-light travel and energy weapons." The display shifted, showing the same region of space, but with different markings. Ancient pathways crisscrossed between stars. Structures appeared around systems that were now considered empty space. "This is how the galaxy looked 12,000 years ago," Sarah continued. "During the height of the First Galactic Republic." Murmurs rippled through the audience. The First Galactic Republic was a legend, a myth that some species told their children. Most historians believed it had never existed. "The Republic was founded by humanity and our allies," Sarah said calmly. At its peak, it included over 10,000 worlds across 3 galaxy arms. "We had mastered technologies that your current civilizations consider impossible. We could reshape matter at the quantum level, travel between galaxies, even manipulate time itself." Admiral Zexthil, who had been brought to the session under guard, stood up shakily. His proud uniform was wrinkled, and his red eyes were dim with defeat. "You're lying," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "If humans had such power, why hide it? Why let yourselves be treated as a minor species?" Sarah looked at him with something like pity. "Because we learned the cost of that power, Admiral. Would you like to know what happened to the First Republic?" The display changed again, showing the same star map, but now marked with red scars. Across multiple systems, entire sectors appeared burned and empty. "War," Sarah said simply. "Not war between species, but civil war among humans. We had grown so powerful that we began to believe we were gods. Different human factions fought for control of the galaxy. Our weapons burned out entire star systems. Our battles created the void regions you still avoid today." Counselor Valenaya of the Veltar stood up, her blue skin pale with shock. "The dead zones? Those were caused by war?" "By human war," Sarah confirmed. "In our arrogance, we nearly destroyed everything. Billions of worlds were rendered lifeless. Entire species were wiped out in the crossfire. We created weapons that could kill stars and defenses that could stop time itself." The hall had become completely silent. Even the translation devices seemed to whisper. "How did it end?" asked the council speaker. With wisdom, finally, Sarah replied. The surviving. Human leaders realized what we had become. We held one final council, not to plan more war, but to decide our future. Some wanted to rebuild the Republic and rule the galaxy again. Others wanted to destroy all remaining technology and start over. What did you choose? Neither. We chose exile. We dismantled our great cities and abandoned our conquered worlds. We destroyed most of our weapons and hid the rest. Then we retreated to Earth and promised never to interfere with galactic development again. The display showed human ships leaving thousands of worlds, traveling back toward a small blue planet in an unremarkable system. But we didn't stop watching, Sarah continued. We built monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. We studied the new species that arose after we left. We learned their languages, their cultures, their strengths and weaknesses. And we waited. Waited for what? Demanded Admiral Zexthal. For you to prove that someone else could do better. For some species, to show that intelligence and technology could coexist with wisdom and peace. For 12,000 years, we hoped that younger civilizations would succeed where we had failed. Sarah's expression grew sad. Instead, we watched the same patterns repeat. Species would gain power and use it to dominate others. The strong would prey on the weak. War and conquest became the accepted way of settling disputes. She gestured toward the Kethver delegation. Your empire, Admiral, follows the same path humanity once took. You measure success by how many worlds you control and how many enemies. You destroy. You see peaceful species as weakness to be exploited. We bring order to chaos, Zexthal protested. We unite primitive worlds under strong leadership. We told ourselves the same thing, Sarah replied. Every tyrant in history has claimed to bring order. But order built on fear and force always crumbles eventually. Counselor Velanaya raised her hand. Ambassador Chun, if humanity has been watching us for so long, why reveal yourselves now? Why not continue hiding? Sarah was quiet for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Because the galaxy is approaching a crisis point. Your technologies are advancing rapidly. Within a century, several species will have weapons capable of sterilizing entire worlds. Within 2 centuries, someone will rediscover the kind of planet-killing devices that destroyed the First Republic. The display showed projections of current technological development, with red warning markers appearing as various species reached dangerous capability levels. We can see the future that's coming, Sarah continued. Another galactic war, fought with weapons that make our ancient conflicts look like children's games. Billions of species wiped out. Whole galaxy arms turned into dead zones. So you decided to intervene? Asked the council speaker. We decided to offer guidance. For 12,000 years, we've been the galaxy's guardians, working in secret to prevent the worst conflicts. We've stopped dozens of wars before they could start. We've shared technology with peaceful species and sabotaged the weapons of aggressive ones. This revelation sent new murmurs through the hall. Every delegate was now thinking about their own history, wondering how many times human intervention had changed their fate without their knowledge. The outer rim colonies that Admiral Zexthal wanted to conquer? Sarah continued. We established those settlements 200 years ago. They're refuges for species fleeing persecution and war. We've been protecting them ever since. Zexthal's face went through several emotions: anger, disbelief, and finally a kind of horrified understanding. You've been manipulating us. All of us. We've been trying to guide you away from the mistakes we made, Sarah corrected. But we can't force wisdom on species that refuse to learn. Some beings, like the Veltar, choose cooperation over conquest. Others, like your people, choose domination over peace. What happens now? Asked Counselor Velanaya. Will humanity resume open rule of the galaxy? Sarah shook her head. We don't want to rule anything. We learned that lesson too well. But we won't hide anymore either. The galaxy is entering a dangerous time, and you need to know what's at stake. She activated a new display showing current conflicts and potential flashpoints across known space. Right now, 12 different species are developing weapons that could threaten entire systems. 7 governments are planning expansions that would trigger resource wars. 3 civilizations are on the verge of civil conflicts that could spread across multiple sectors. The delegates looked at the display with growing alarm. They recognized many of the situations Sarah described. What are you proposing? Asked the council speaker. Partnership, Sarah said simply. Humanity will share our knowledge with species that prove they can use it responsibly. We'll provide protection for those who need it and guidance for those who want it. But in return, the galaxy must commit to peaceful development. And if we refuse? Admiral Zexthel asked. Sarah looked directly at him. Then you'll face the same choice we did 12,000 years ago. Wisdom or destruction, growth or extinction, the path forward or the path to oblivion. She turned to address the entire assembly. We're offering you the chance to learn from our mistakes, instead of repeating them. To build a civilization based on cooperation instead of conquest. To prove that intelligence can coexist with wisdom. But understand this, she continued, her voice growing firm. We will not allow another galactic war. We will not watch genocide and call it progress. We will not permit the innocent to suffer for the ambitions of the powerful. 6 months after Sarah Chun's revelation to the Galactic Council, the galaxy looked very different. The revelation that humanity was an ancient, powerful civilization had sent shockwaves through every corner of known space. Some species embraced the truth, while others rejected it violently. On Nexus Station, Sarah walked through corridors that had been redesigned to accommodate the new reality. Where once the human delegation had occupied 5 chairs in a back corner, they now had a full diplomatic wing. But the changes went deeper than just physical space. The Veltar had been the first to officially request a partnership agreement. Counselor Velanaya, now serving as her species' primary liaison with humanity, worked closely with Sarah on establishing new trade and technology sharing protocols. The quantum medical scanners you shared last month have already saved thousands of lives, Velanaya reported during their weekly meeting. Our doctors can now detect genetic disorders before they develop and treat diseases that were previously incurable. Sarah nodded approvingly. Your people have used the technology exactly as intended, to heal and protect. That's why we chose to share it with you first. The Veltar weren't the only ones to benefit. The peaceful Altair Republic had received advanced farming techniques that doubled their food production. The scholarly Deneb Confederation gained access to historical archives that filled gaps in their understanding of galactic development. 12 smaller species received protection from aggressive neighbors and resources to develop their own colonies. But not everyone welcomed humanity's emergence. From hiding in the Kethver Empire, Admiral Zexthil sat in a military planning room surrounded by charts and weapon specifications. His defeat at Earth had cost him his rank and reputation, but it had also given him something else, a burning desire for revenge. The humans think they can dictate terms to the galaxy, he said to the assembled HFY War Council. They believe their ancient technology makes them untouchable. But every weapon has a weakness. General Corval, the new military commander, leaned forward. Our scientists have been studying the battle footage from Sol System. The human ships use some kind of quantum field manipulation for their impossible movements. If we can disrupt those fields, they'll fall like any other ship, Zexthil finished. How long until we have working disruption devices? 2 years, possibly 3. But Admiral, even if we can counter their movement advantage, their weapons still cut through. Our best armor, like it doesn't exist. Zexthal smiled grimly. Then we don't fight them directly. We build a coalition. The Rigel Syndicate hates taking orders from anyone. The Centauri hegemony fears losing their trade monopolies. The Orion Confederacy doesn't want to share technology with inferior species. He activated a holographic map showing potential allies throughout the galaxy. 37 major powers and hundreds of minor ones are unhappy with humanity's new position. If we unite them against the common threat, the humans will still have superior technology, General Corvell pointed out. But we'll have superior numbers, and more importantly, we'll have surprise. The humans revealed themselves because they think the galaxy is ready for peace. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Meanwhile, on Earth, Director James Liu stood in the restored command center of the Sahara facility. Banks of quantum computers process data from across the galaxy, monitoring everything from trade negotiations to military buildups. The information was staggering in its scope and detail. Status report, Liu requested from his chief analyst. Positive developments in 43 sectors, Dr. Sarah Kim replied, reading from her tablet. The technology sharing programs are exceeding expectations. Disease rates are down 23% in recipient systems. Agricultural yields are up 67% on average. Educational exchanges are producing breakthrough discoveries in quantum physics and biological sciences. And the negative developments? Kim's expression darkened. Intelligence suggests 17 systems are actively working to counter our capabilities. The Kethver are leading a coalition that includes at least 42 species. They're calling it the Galactic Liberation Front. Liu wasn't surprised. How long until they can field effective countermeasures? Conservative estimate is 3 years for basic disruption technology. 5 to 7 years for weapons that could actually threaten our ships. More than enough time to prepare appropriate responses. What about the recruitment efforts? Mixed results. They're having success with military-focused species and those who profit from the current conflict-driven economy. But their message isn't resonating with civilian populations who are seeing direct benefits from our technology sharing. Liu nodded thoughtfully. The pattern was predictable. Those who gained power from war and exploitation opposed peace and cooperation. But the ordinary people of the galaxy were beginning to see what life could be like without constant conflict. On Nexus Station, Sarah Chun received a priority message from Earth. She read it quickly, then activated her personal communicator. Ambassador Chun to Captain Santos, she said. The response came immediately from somewhere in space. Santos here, Ambassador. Maria, how are our guardianship missions proceeding? Better than expected. We've prevented 3 potential conflicts this month just by showing up and offering mediation. Turns out most species prefer talking to fighting when they know someone stronger than both sides is watching. Sarah smiled. Captain Santos and her ship had become something of a legend in the outer systems. A guardian would appear whenever tensions rose between neighbors, offering Earth services as neutral mediators. Most conflicts ended before they began. Any military challenges to our operations? A few probing attacks from Kethver aligned. Groups, nothing we couldn't handle. They're testing our capabilities, trying to find weaknesses. Be careful, Maria. Intelligence suggests they're planning something larger. Understood. Guardian out. Sarah closed the communication and returned to her current task, reviewing applications for technology sharing from 17 different species. Each request required careful evaluation. Did the species have a history of aggressive expansion? Would they use advanced technology to dominate their neighbors? Could they be trusted with power? The decisions weren't easy. The Tau Ceti mining consortium wanted industrial fabricators that could revolutionize their economy. But they also had a history of exploiting worker populations. The Procyon Defense Alliance requested shield technology to protect their worlds from raiders. But some of their member species had aggressive tendencies. Sarah approved the Procyon request with conditions. The shields could only be used for planetary defense, not ship-to-ship combat. She denied the Tau Ceti request, but offered them improved worker safety technology, instead. Each decision set precedents that would shape galactic development for generations. Sarah felt the weight of that responsibility every day. 3 months later, the first major test of humanity's new role came when border tensions between the Altair Republic and the Sirius Empire escalated toward war. Both sides had legitimate grievances, disputed mining rights in a system that both claimed, but neither would compromise. Sarah arrived in the disputed system aboard a human diplomatic vessel. Unlike the simple ships of Earth's defense fleet, this one was designed to impress. It was larger than most cruisers, but moved with impossible grace, its hull gleaming with the soft blue glow of advanced shield systems. Representatives from both sides met aboard the human ship in a conference room that seemed to exist in its own pocket of spacetime. Through transparent walls, they could see the disputed system spread out around them, as if they were floating among the stars themselves. "Gentlemen," Sarah began, addressing the Altair and Sirius negotiators, "you are prepared to fight a war that will kill millions of people over rocks and metal that neither of you actually needs." The Altair representative, a tall humanoid with green skin, protested immediately. "Those asteroids contain rare elements essential to our technology base. Without them, our civilization will stagnate." His Sirius counterpart, a bear-like creature with thick fur and sharp claws, growled his agreement. "The Sirius Empire has prior claim to this system. We were mining these asteroids before the Altair even achieved spaceflight." Sarah activated a holographic display showing detailed scans of the disputed asteroids. These rocks contain approximately 2.3 million tons of rare elements. At current galactic market prices, they're worth about 500 billion credits. Both negotiators nodded. It was a fortune worth fighting for. "However," Sarah continued, "the war you're planning will cost both sides an estimated 2 trillion credits and result in at least 50,000 casualties. You're prepared to spend 4 times the value of the prize and lose tens of thousands of lives to claim it." She changed the display to show Earth's proposed solution. "Alternatively, humanity will provide both civilizations with quantum fabricators capable of producing these same rare elements artificially. The initial setup cost is 10 billion credits per system. No mining required, no environmental damage, no war." The room fell silent as both sides absorbed the offer. Finally, the Sirius representative spoke. "What do you want in return?" "A mutual defense pact between your species," Sarah replied. "You'll commit to resolving future disputes through negotiation rather than